Hey everyone, welcome to our live stream. Today we are going to be chatting about building low-code APIs and dashboards. And I have with me today Harshil. Hey Harshil, welcome.
Hey, thank you for having me. It's gonna be a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess like if you have been attending the previous streams, you probably know both of us. So just a quick run through. I'm Tane and I'm running developer relations, and Harshil and I work together on different topics related to education, about N8N, the low code space, and everything automation related. Cool. So today we are talking about no code APIs and low code dashboards. And the reason we decided to choose this topic was because we've been looking at different startups. And one of the things that often come up is metrics. And metrics could be very useful to measure how the growth of a startup, of teams, of products is going through over time. And most of the teams need it at certain point. And what I've seen in the previous companies that I've worked at is a lot of the teams have to request either engineering teams, DevOps teams, even like IT teams to set up these dashboards. And thinking about our mission at N8N is giving anybody with a computer technical superpowers. So we thought, why not chat about this aspect of superpowers, which is dashboards, so that people can create those for themselves without having to ask somebody with a particular technical expertise. And Harshil has been talking about DevRel metrics and some of the things we've been thinking about, like what public metrics could we showcase so that it gives you some inspiration to put in other metrics that might be relevant to you. And I think, Harshil, correct me if I'm wrong, some of the things that you've mentioned are GitHub stars, GitHub forks, maybe product hunt launch metrics, and also Docker pulls. So that would be pulls from Docker Hub, right?
Yep. So this would be the metrics that we would be pulling today. But Tanay, I have a question for you. So
Yeah.
are we gonna use some external tool to build this dashboard, or what exactly are we gonna do? Because we are talking about end-to-end, right? So I am just curious, can we build some kind of an API, or I don't know, a dashboard that can simply run through end-to-end and we don't need any external services?
So let's do it in two ways. So first of all, what we can do is we can create a low-code API.
Mm-hmm.
And what that will enable you to do is have an endpoint which gives you the data that you want. And of course, this is going to be updated anytime something is updated on
Right.
GitHub or Docker pull, and so on. And then you could potentially take this, you can also authenticate this API so all your data isn't going
Mm-hmm.
on, even though the data we are showing today is public anyways. But it might contain private information like financial data that maybe you're pulling from Google Sheets or somewhere.
Right.
And what you can potentially do is take this API, connect it to a no-code dashboard tool. So,
Mm-hmm.
we have worked with Retool in the past. We have talked about AppSmith. So these are really two good no-code dashboard tools. So you could connect them, have your dashboard ready. So first step is going to be building the API. And then we are going
Mm-hmm.
to do another incremental step. And I think this is something we both learned together during our last hack mission, which is serving HTML using N8N. So we are going to use the API workflow and add, or maybe actually modify a few things in it so that
Mm-hmm.
it will be able to sort of serve HTML and you have an HTML dashboard. And I haven't worked with HTML and CSS in a long time, so I'd be requesting Herschel for help. So that is where the second part of the stream goes a bit more in the low code direction compared to the no code
No
first
code.
half.
Awesome. And I see a lot of people joining us. Hey Devesh, hey the lazy kid, hey Max, how are you all doing?
Hey everyone. Yeah, thank you for joining us. Davis, lovely to see you here. Lazy Kid, hey. Hey Max, nice to see you here as well. So if you don't know Max, he actually presented in a stream, I think a few weeks back, how
Mm-hmm.
he and another one of our colleagues built a product dashboard with retools. So if you haven't seen that yet, that's also something worth checking out. It's on our YouTube channel. Hey Damien, nice to see you there.
Cool.
So Harshad, yeah, how do we get started? Do you want to share your screen and then we build something?
Sure.
Hey, Samuel, nice to
So,
see you here as well.
hey, hi. All right. So we talked about building APIs. So we would need, a way to access that particular endpoint. So for this, for such kind of use case, what kind of node should I go with?
So, the first thing that comes to mind is the Webhook node.
Mm-hmm.
So, Webhook node basically allows us to send requests. So, Webhook node is a trigger node, which means that it can start workflows in any time. And of course, we want some event to start the workflow, which then gets
Right.
data from these different services.
Mm-hmm.
So, let's go with Webhook node.
Awesome. So with the webhook node now that we are gonna make a request, right? So if I'm not wrong, the HTTP in HTTP there are different kind of request methods like get, post, put, delete, and everything, right? So over here, are we gonna send any kind of data, or is it just gonna be a get request?
So we just do a GET request for now because we really just want to get these data points back. We would, I think, put authentication mechanism, maybe a header auth or maybe even a basic auth, either of those.
Mm-hmm.
But
Okay,
let's go with GET. I think that makes sense.
awesome.
And then we have also, I see the path field
Mm-hmm.
inside the webhook node. So you might see that this is a random string that n8n generates because if two different webhook nodes within your n8n instance have the same path, that would create conflicts.
Right.
So it's recommended that you use something unique, but
Mm-hmm.
maybe let's change it right now so that it's a bit more readable. So what should we call it?
What should we call it? I don't know. API would be too mainstream for this.
Metrics?
Matrix, yeah, that's a good one. Let's do matrix. So now that we are changing the path, it would be a URL slash matrix, right? So this would be the new
So
path.
it would be, yeah. And just to confirm that, let's
Hmm.
open up the webhook URLs.
All right.
Exactly. And yeah, that's your
Okay.
n8n instance. So you're running n8n on n8n cloud.
Hmm.
Um, and one thing to keep in mind is if you're self-hosting n8n and if it's just running with npm or something like that, you would be able to access this in your local network.
Hmm.
But if you want to go outside your network, you would have to run n8n internal mode. So we do have information on that in our documentation.
Okay. Awesome. And now over here, I see there are two different kinds of URL. So one is the production, and one is the test URL. So can you explain me a difference of both these URLs?
Yeah, let's do it. So we'd be using the test URL first. So the
Hmm.
difference between them is test URL is useful when you're building a workflow, debugging something.
Okay.
So just as an example, if you click on the test URL to copy it,
Hmm.
yeah, perfect. And now to actually get data into it, you if you paste it on a different browser tab, it would give an error like the webhook is not registered.
Hmm.
And I mean, I don't think it would give you anything right now because
Yeah,
first we'd have to save this workflow. So with
exactly.
any trigger nodes or webhook, you need to save the workflow first. So let's
Okay.
save it.
And
Perfect.
now if I go to a new tab and paste it over here. All
Exactly.
right. Okay.
So yeah, this endpoint is not registered. So basically, yeah, 404 not found.
Hmm.
So this happens because in the test mode, the webhook node needs to get registered first. And to do that, you'd have to click on execute workflow. Either you can do it from there, or you could
Hmm.
open up the
Oh,
webhook node and click on execute node. So it depends on if
okay.
you just want to execute this webhook node or do you
Hmm.
want to do the whole thing.
If I execute this, okay. So I now get a different message that says workflow got started.
Perfect.
And if I come over here, I get some data as well. Interesting. Nice. So once we save the our workflow with a trigger node, right? But we were using the test URL. What if
Yeah,
I make a request to the production URL? Will that still give me an error?
I'd say so. Yeah, I mean we can test it out. Let's check it out.
Let's try it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna copy it. Now because this is in production URL, I don't have to execute the node, right?
Yeah, generally,
Okay.
yes, but it would still give an error right now. Exactly, because we are calling the production endpoint. So you see
Right.
the URL differs. The first one has
Mhm.
webhook hyphen test, and this is just webhook slash metrics.
Right.
Um, and that is
Mhm.
because the workflow is not activated yet. And to do that, we would click, if you go back to the editor UI, on the top right, there's this activate button,
Active. Hmm.
and we'd have to do that. However, if you open the URL again, the production URL, it would run.
Okay. I'm just gonna delete the executions over here.
Yes, perfect.
If I run this, okay.
So workflow got
So
started.
workflow got started, and if I come over here, huh? But now I don't see any executions over here.
So exactly, and that's the reason we use the test webhook while building a workflow, because we want to see the data that passes through. When you're using a production mode, the editor UI does not show
Hmm.
the executions and the data that's coming through. However, you could take a look at them on the left panel. There's this executions menu.
Hmm.
Yeah, exactly. And there you see the mode was webhook ran success. So here you can see the past executions as well.
Right. Interesting. Awesome. And I see a comment from Max as well, where he says that you are able to pass variables into the path, which is helpful for more advanced use case where you want to emulate a RESTful endpoint. Yeah, yeah, that's something interesting. Tanay, do you want to talk about that as well?
Yeah, so we are creating a very basic version of a REST API right now. So it might have some authentication, but REST APIs, you might have different resources, different
Hmm.
endpoints. You might want to have pass on variables along with it to be able to access certain records from whatever backend you have. So exactly with what Max shared, you can do that. So I'll pull that back up on the screen. um, you can pass variables into the path like static text variable, and this is similar to how the structure of REST APIs look like.
Right.
So you can do that as well with the webhook node.
Okay.
Perhaps something we could
So,
cover in one of our next streams as well.
mhm. Yeah, that would be interesting. That would be interesting.
Could build
Awesome.
a fully fledged REST API there.
Yeah. Okay. So do we have any questions around the webhook node, folks? In the
Yeah, if you
meantime,
have any questions, exactly, yeah, please ask your questions in the chat.
Tanesh, what? So now that we have the webhook node up and running, we want to pull the data from GitHub, Product Hunt, as well as Docker Hub. So
Yeah.
what should be my next step?
So before we actually move on, let's do something with the webhook node.
Hmm.
You can do it at the end as well, but let's do it now so we don't forget.
Okay.
I mean, if you forget, it won't work, so it's also okay.
Okay.
Let's do it now. Yeah, let's open the webhook node again.
Hmm.
So right now you saw whenever you called this API endpoint, you got a message workflow got started, and that's
Right.
because it's the default message, because maybe
Hmm.
your workflow doesn't need to return some data because it's just getting it started, it does its
Hmm.
thing, and that's it. But since we are trying to create an API, we want response back.
Right.
So
Hmm.
mode would be, instead of on receive, so there's a response mode field, we change it
Hmm.
to last node.
Okay. Okay.
And now what it would do is whatever the last node, I mean, in this case, it's webhook because it's just one node.
Hmm.
Let's say we get data from a couple of different nodes. And then at the end, we create a set node where we can define like, okay, we just want these four values, because if you use a GitHub node or something like that, it's going to dump a lot of data,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
we might not necessarily need. So we can just like filter that using the set node, and that would be the last node that would be executed, and then that would be the result we get instead of workflow gets got started. So
Inter-
first entry JSON is fine because we would only get one entry here, but
mhm.
depending on what your API does and how its structure is like, you might want to choose something else as well.
Right, right. Okay. I see that we can also return a binary file. That's interesting.
Yeah.
That's cool. All right. So the next thing I should add a set node, right?
Yeah. Yeah, actually, yeah, let's add a set node.
What should we call it? I don't know.
Yeah,
Metrics.
metrics.
And for now, we just want to put some random message.
Sure, yeah.
Hello and 10. Let's do this. And I'm gonna toggle keep only set to true. So what this
Yeah.
does is it will only return the information that we are setting in this particular node, and it will not get the data. It will not forward the data that's coming in from the previous node.
Yeah.
So now if I execute the workflow and run this, interesting. So now we got the message, metrics, and then hello n10.
Awesome.
Awesome.
And now we
That's
have
good.
an API endpoint of sort, which is useless in its current state, but yeah,
Yeah.
we'll add more things to it. And then, it's a good foundation for moving towards there.
Awesome.
It's also
Mhm,
useful that you actually did the keep only set, because if we open the webhook node,
mhm,
you get a lot of useless information, useless for
mhm.
our use case, right? Like
Right. Right.
all the headers, what user agent you have, and so on. So we don't really
Mhm.
need that right now. So it's good, yeah. This information gets filtered out, and just only the things that you said there gets
Right.
returned.
Right. Interesting. Awesome. And now let's get some data.
Let's do it. So what should we get first? Maybe GitHub, because we have a GitHub node. Let's do that.
Yeah. Let's do that. We have a GitHub node, and I am gonna use Auth2 over here because I already
Mhm.
have the credentials for it.
Mhm.
But just to give an overview to all the viewers, so if you click on create new, all you have to do is enter the name for your credentials. So this can be GitHub@Hershels, and this is for myself. And then you click on the button over here. So this will ask your permission and then connect for you. Like because I already have connected my N8N instance to my GitHub account, it is not gonna. I'm not gonna able to show you the whole flow, but you have to give the permission, and then you will be able to access the GitHub API.
And it's useful how your Herschel showed, he named the credentials as like, it's GitHub, and for his personal account, because you might have different people who might have authenticated with this, or maybe you have a separate account for personal
Yeah.
stuff, work stuff. For some reason, it's good to be able to identify at a glance. I want this one and not the
Yeah.
other one. Yeah, especially useful in cases of emails and so on, when you have maybe a Gmail node, might have different emails. That's probably a bit more common. And then you have to see,
Yeah.
okay, I want my Proton mail, this or that. So yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like I earlier I didn't used to follow this, and I was like, okay, which credentials belong to which account, and I needed to test them out. But now I'm following this practice, and it's really helpful for me.
Yeah, yeah. Same thing as it's like, do as I say, don't do as I do. I probably have like 10 credentials called Telegram in or Telegram 1, Telegram 2, and so on, which is not useful. So yeah.
Yeah. Mm,
Okay, so the node is now authenticated. Um,
mm-hmm,
And what we need to do now is, let's get stars and forks, maybe.
mm-hmm,
So to
mm-hmm.
do that, I actually don't remember what exactly it was. Oh, the repositories should be the
Yeah.
one. So
Yeah.
each node in an n8n essentially has, it looks very similar for all the nodes. So
Mm-hmm,
first of all, you have credentials to, talk to an external service. And you might have this authentication field. If there's more than one ways you can authenticate, like access token, OAuth, or whatever. And then we have these resources and operations, which like quite common across all the nodes. So if you think of an ERP, for example, or a place where you store contacts and so on, and let's say there's
Mm-hmm.
an ERP where you can store names of people that you meet and maybe names of companies that you have talked to or something like that.
Right, right.
And you it create there's a node for that in n8n. So resources are high level things. So in this case, the example that I gave, there would be two resources: person and company. And then we
Mm-hmm.
have operations which associate to each of these high level options. So the operations, for example, could be CRUD, like create, read, update, and delete for person, for company. So here we have a similar structure here. And
Mm-hmm.
we created in this way so that it's easy to find what you're looking for. And then beneath it would be the different fields that you need to get this information,
Mm-hmm.
and anything else, because a lot of REST APIs, you can set them filters for them or maybe some criteria, only people who have added 10 days earlier and so on. But these are optional things. They get added down. So either they
Mm-hmm.
would be
Okay.
called additional options or filters, as in this case. And this is done so as not to clutter up the UI. Otherwise, this can be visually overloading at times.
Gotcha. Makes sense. Awesome. So now for the operations, we certainly don't want the issues, but we want the data of the repository, right? So I'm gonna
Yeah.
select the get operation, and okay, I can see in the placeholder it's already giving me some information. So it's gonna be n10-io.
Which is
The
perfect because that's the
repository
repository we
name.
want data for.
That's awesome. Okay, so now if I execute the node, it should give me all the information. TPI, amazing.
Awesome. So a lot of data.
Yeah,
Um,
and and we certainly don't want all this data, right? And
no,
that's
we don't.
why we are using the keep only set in the set node.
Exactly. So I see somewhere stargazers or stargazers underscore count. So yeah, just like
Yeah,
some data like that. Forks must be
mhm.
somewhere as well. So
Yeah. Over here we got
good.
folks count as well. Wow, a lot of people are contributing to the project. That's amazing.
It indeed is.
So now we have the information from GitHub. Should we just get it in the set node, or should we first get all the information now?
We could do it either way. Whatever you prefer. Maybe let's get all the information.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah. So next thing we want to get is, let's get data from Docker Hub. So we could
Okay.
get data of pulls. And I
Mm-hmm.
think, yeah, let's look for Docker. And okay, so we do not have a node for Docker Hub.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the thing that we can do is we know that Docker Hub offers a REST API.
Right.
So I think we don't even have to authenticate against it, but even if you do, that's still fine. So what we can do is use an HTTP request node here.
Mm-hmm.
And the good thing about HTTP request node is essentially you can use it to call API endpoints. You can add authentication methods, access token, what have you, and you can configure a lot of different options here and get all the data if there is no node for something in an A10.
Nice.
So we would be using the endpoint, which I'm going to look up. So I think
Mm-hmm.
it looks something like hub.docker.com/v2/repositories, and then things.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to send it over to you in private chat. There you go.
All right. Just let me paste it over here. This is the URL that we want to make the
Yeah.
API call to. Awesome.
Yeah.
And
And
this would be yeah.
go
And
ahead.
this would be a get request, right?
I think so. Let's try it.
Okay, let's do it. The first thing I want to do is connect it with my GitHub node, and now let's try it. Okay, yeah, awesome.
Perfect. It was a GET request.
Cool. Okay, so this is interesting. So it gives us a lot of information as well as the description. This is nice. But the only information we are interested at the movement is
It's
the
a
pull
pull
count.
count.
Nice. Okay. Wow. I can't even read the number. It's such a huge number.
Yeah, it's tough without the commas, isn't it? Is it like 18 million?
I think so. I
Yeah,
think so. Yeah.
8.5 million almost. It's amazing.
Wow.
Cool.
Awesome. So we have the stars and the forks from GitHub. We have the pulls from Docker as well. The only thing remaining is the product hunt votes, right?
Yeah. And since you mentioned Product Hunt before we decided to do this live stream, so I went ahead and
Mm-hmm.
got some information on that. But we have a slight problem. So we don't have a
Okay.
node for Product Hunt.
Uh-huh.
They do have an API, but it's not a
Nice.
REST API, it's a GraphQL API. So I
Okay.
chatted with Harshal about this, and it's like I have no knowledge about GraphQL, but we do have a GraphQL node. So we can get the data. So Harshal volunteered to show me how to use the GraphQL node and get the data from it. So I'm going to send over to you the
Mm-hmm.
URL, Harshal, for the GraphQL endpoint, and then
Mm-hmm.
maybe you can show me how to use GraphQL to get data.
Sure. So for this product hunt, it requires you to authenticate yourself. So I don't want to expose my API keys on the live stream. So I kind of already have set it up, but I'm gonna walk through of all the steps over here. So this is the GraphQL URL. Now you might be thinking, hey, it's a magic how this appeared. So I just copied the GraphQL node from a different window, just control C and then paste it over here. So this is another cool trick that you can do. You can copy nodes from one workflow to another and then just reuse them. So you don't have to configure all the nodes again. So let's connect this. And now for the GraphQL for the GraphQL node, the HTTP request most of the time is post, because with GraphQL you can most of the time you only make a post request. And then the endpoint, most of the GraphQL endpoints again have /GraphQL. So this kind of helps you to understand if it's a GraphQL API or if it's a REST API. Then we are setting the query over here. So let's talk about the difference between GraphQL API and the REST API for a minute. So earlier we saw that with the GitHub and the Docker Hub API, right? We got all the response. We were just interested in the star count and the and what was it? The number of folks for GitHub, and for the Docker Hub, we were only interested in the number of the pulls, right? But but the API gave us all the information, even though we don't need that. But with GraphQL, what you can do is you can specify the information that you need. So you can say, hey, I want only this information, and GraphQL will only return that information. So over here, we are making a simple query. So we are using the post object, and we are passing the ID. So this ID corresponds to the anytime post, and then we are getting the comment count, the votes count, the review count, the review ratings, and the name. So what I am gonna just execute this with all this information to see the data that gets returned, and then I'm gonna remove a few of this and see what kind of information we get. And talking about the product hunt API specifically, it uses the authentication header auth, and that's why I have added my header auth down below. So if I execute the node, now you can see that we got the comment count, vote count, review rating, and name. Now since I'm just interested in the votes count, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna remove the comment count, the review count, and the review rating. The name is okay. And now if I execute it, you will see that we only get the vote count and the name. So this is one of the major differences between GraphQL and the REST API, and this is why I kind of like GraphQL more than REST API, because it only gives the information that we need.
That's useful. That's awesome. And I see two comments coming in. So three comments. So one is from Damien who says, our own hosted instance requires more steps than that. Cloud is a lot easier for this stuff. So yeah, for sure. I think there's benefits of both of the ecosystems. So N8N cloud is essentially N8N, and there's benefits like you can just sign up and get started rather to have to install, if you haven't
Mm,
used terminal before, or Docker, npm, this kind of stuff. And another thing definitely is what Harshal showed around authentication. So if we did OAuth 2, for example, on a self-hosted version, we'd have to get client ID, secret, and then connected here, you could just sign in, so to speak, and your credentials are connected. So it can be a bit quicker to work with cloud as well. So yeah, for sure. Then Damien says, easy, GraphQL is a nightmare, lol. I mean, I can empathize with you, Damien. I always looked at GraphQL and I was like, I should just use the REST API. But I don't know. Harshal might have changed my mind a bit. I'll definitely give it a second try, but I see where you're coming from as well. Then I see a comment from Teflon Dude who says, to me, GraphQL feels like a combination of APIs and SQL, the best of both worlds. Yeah, I did also think the same way because you can specify what columns you want as in
yeah.
SQL. That's nice. I never thought about it like that. I was thinking of it more like HTTP request node and a set node, so you
Mm,
filter things. But that also makes a lot of sense. So nice analogy there.
yeah. I like your analogy as well of a HTTP request node and the set node. That's a good way to put the GraphQL API.
Yeah. Awesome. Cool.
Cool.
So now we have all the data that we needed. So we could
Mm-hmm.
actually connect the set node now back to the workflow. And the thing is now what happens here is, we have data coming in from the GitHub node, from the Webhook
Mm-hmm.
node first. Then we have
Right.
GitHub, and all these nodes are pretty much overwriting the data that the next node creates,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that the previous nodes created. And we want to reference, to the data that GitHub created, HTTP request created, and GraphQL created, because the workflow data at the set node is only the output from the GraphQL node right now. So we'll be
Right.
using
Right.
expressions to do that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So I'm just gonna create a few fields for now so that I know what information I want. So this would be the fork and stars, pulse, and the last thing was votes. Do we need anything else?
So we have forks, stars, polls, votes. No, I think that's good.
Awesome. And I definitely want, I don't want the value of folks to be hello anytime. So I'm going to remove it. And you said using expression editor, right?
Yeah.
So add expression. So if I click on current node and input data, will I get this information?
No, so you'd get the data that's going in the workflow inside this node. So
Uh-huh.
previous node is GraphQL, which overrode all the previous data. So you're going to be getting
Mm-hmm.
only the data from the GraphQL node.
Ah,
Um,
right. Okay. Mm-hmm.
yeah. So in this case,
Nice.
we would use nodes instead of current node.
Ah, okay. So nodes. Interesting. So this would be the folks count. We got it. And then next would be the stars. So this is again coming from GitHub. Let's
That's
see.
correct.
Let's see. No, like one thing I really like is that you can search for them in the search bar and you get the response in here.
Nice.
So I know it's GitHub over here and then the stargazers count. So you don't
Perfect.
have to, manually search through all those things and you can just type in what you want and you get the result over here. And this pulse is again coming from the HTTP request node and not the GraphQL node.
Right. So
But I don't know.
again, we go
Mhm.
inside nodes.
Pull count. Yes.
And here you can use the current node if you want, because
Uh-huh.
that data is in the workflow. Uh,
Right. Interesting.
either way.
Interesting. Awesome. So now if I execute this, I'll get this information. Let's execute this and we got the information. This is awesome.
Awesome. So let's save this so that actually let's
Mm,
do one thing. Um, why don't we put some sort of authentication
mm,
um, on this API, and then we share this in our Discord so that folks watching can also try this out with the
awesome.
HTTP
Okay.
request node.
Okay.
So so let's do this. So
Mm-hmm.
we have a Discord server. I'm not sure if you are a part of that. If not, let me drop the URL.
I see
Let me know if you.
national underscore joke says, geez, didn't know this was also being streamed on Twitch much better. Yeah, we stream it on both Twitch and YouTube. And I'm glad that you like Twitch because I am also kind of more inclined towards Twitch. We got another comment from him saying, I'm really wondering how this is going to turn out to a dashboard. We are coming to that. We are just going to come to that very soon. And then Davis says, definitely did not know that. Great call out, Harshit. Awesome. Yeah. So the search kind of actually, if you know the term that you want to search for, the search really helps to make your workflows faster because you don't have to go into the objects and find out where it is laying under. You can just quickly search over there and then import it.
Cool. So let's now. So if you aren't a part of the Discord, I've dropped in a link. So please join the server and say hi. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go to the webhook node, because
Hmm.
let's say it's right now it's the public data that anybody can get. Um, this might very easily be data coming in from Profitwell about the earnings of a company,
Hmm. Hmm,
about
hmm, hmm.
headcount and so on, burn rates. There's a lot of different things going on. So we might want to authenticate this. So let's open up the webhook node, and what should we do? Let's add header auth maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, let's do that. Had a auth and I have to create a new one, right?
Yeah. So
Awesome.
metrics dashboard.
Credentials name, yeah. Do that.
Okay, let's keep it
Name.
easy so it's easy for folks
Okay.
to copy paste.
So let's just do metrics
Okay,
and then the
metrics.
value be dashboard.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Awesome.
So let's create this, um,
Create
and
this
now we
and okay.
can save it.
And yep.
Perfect.
So I have to now
So
give you the production URL.
yeah,
Awesome. So I've shared the production URL with you.
okay. What I'm also going to do is I'm going to drop it in our Discord server.
Mm-hmm.
So from the live stream, so here we have, and this is header auth,
Yeah.
and I think it was called metrics and dashboard.
Yep.
So the
The
name was metrics and the
the
value
value
was
was
dashboard.
dashboard. Yeah.
Dashboard with a capital D.
D.
Okay. Cool. So I have added this in community general on Discord.
Mm-hmm.
So in
Mm-hmm.
case you haven't used the HTTP request node before, um,
Mm-hmm.
I will share my screen and show you how you can do that as well.
Yeah, let's do it.
So
National
okay,
underscore joke says, I am part of the Discord server. I didn't see it being shared anywhere. Oh, it wasn't shared. Yeah, okay. But I hope you can see it now. And let us know if you can't see the information as well.
yeah, I just did it a minute ago. Okay, so Harshal, can you see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So let's say Harshal created the dashboard and I want to get data from it. So I
Mm,
opened up the HTTP request node since this is a custom API endpoint and there isn't a node for Harshal's metrics dashboard in n8n yet. So I'm going to be pasting the API endpoint that we also shared in the Discord
mm,
server. And authentication would be header auth. So we create a new one and we call this metrics dashboard, but feel free to call it whatever you want. Uh, Harsha's live stream dashboard, whatever makes more sense to you. If you have multiple metrics dashboard, so name was metrics, the value was dashboard.
dashboard.
Perfect. So I create this, and I'm going to execute the node. And voila, we have all this information that you actually created, and I can actually execute it and see the data being changed here as well. So data in the table form in JSON. Perfect. So we actually created an API endpoint without writing any code, unless you count GraphQL query as a code, but which is
Yeah.
also okay. Um, let's call it almost no code.
Yeah. Cool.
Perfect.
So that was interesting. So how does this now tie up with our dashboard?
So yeah, now what we can do is, and while we chat about this, feel free to take these header auth and the
Mm,
API endpoint and try it in your own HTTP request node. Let us know if you run into any troubles. I must point it out at the end of the stream, we will disable this.
yeah.
Um, Okay. So how does this tie into dashboard? So what you could do is potentially you could take this API and you could feed
Mm,
this data to Retool, which is a no-code dashboard system. So it's a hosted tool
mm,
like N8N Cloud. Or what you could do is you could also use AppSmith, which is also a no-code dashboard tool. So it's open source and you could self-host it as well. So let's say your whole stack is on-premise for some reason you don't want it going to
yeah.
cloud. You could also use that. And I mean it's limitless. Like I would also use this to create a slash command, call this API
Mm,
endpoint, and get the data. So I know I'm on Twitter, I'm on Mattermost or Slack.
yeah.
I could do like slash metrics and get all this information. I can see a lot of use for that as well. Not quite dashboard, but you get the
Mm,
data. And finally, you can even use an app like AppSmith. So you could take Figma designs and convert them into apps, and they allow you to talk to a REST API. So you can even
mm,
create a mobile app which is fed by this REST API that Harshit just created. So there's a lot of possibilities here. But what we're going to do is now we're going to turn things to a bit more low code direction.
mm,
And Harshal mentioned that he was going to create a bare bones for HTML and CSS. So, we have metrics dashboard and a couple of, what's the best way to call it, grids,
mm,
squares. So data shows in there. And we'll pull in the data from N8N. And all of this would be run on N8N. So since I haven't touched HTML and CSS in a while, Harshal will be teaching me that as well. So shall we get started then?
let's do that. So
Awesome.
let's do this. Let's leave this workflow as it is. Let's create a new workflow where we'll be making this call to the API and then get the information from there and then maybe somehow magically get a dashboard out of it.
Awesome.
So let me just quickly rename this because now this is not a dashboard. It's just an APF. And I'm gonna create a new one. Since you want again this to run whenever we make a call to a webhook. In this, I'm gonna change this to dashboard. All right, and over here now we want to change the response mode because as talked earlier, the response mode would be workflow got started, the default message, but this time we want to send in the HTML. So let's change it to the last node. And this is where the fun part starts. Now we want to send the first entry JSON, but then this would send only the JSON part, right? We over here want to send HTML. So to do that, what you can do is you can select property name, and then over here you can specify the property name. So I'm gonna just leave it data over here for now. And without making any API calls, let's just simply send out a message. I'm gonna again use toggle this to true. And over here, I'm gonna change this to data, because if you remember in the webhook node, we had the property name that was called data. And I'm gonna write some HTML in here. Close this. So I'm gonna save this call and call it matrix dashboard. Save it. Get my URL. And I'm gonna execute the workflow. So now if I execute this, we see a message in HTML that says hello anytime.
Amazing.
So now all we need to do is get that data, right? Format this HTML, make it look pretty using CSS, and then just make a call to the URL, and you can get all this information as a dashboard.
So would you be reusing the nodes from the previous workflow for this?
We can do that, or we can, since we already have the API that is kind of in production right now, we can just make an HTTP call, get the
Good
information.
call. Let's do that. Sounds good. It's also good for maintainability as well, right? You
Yeah,
have two different components. Otherwise, if you have to maybe make some change to the workflow, you'd have to then do it at two locations. So
exactly.
yeah, awesome.
Okay, so this is again gonna be a GET request, but I need a header auth. And I can already use this the credentials that I created in the previous nodes. I don't have to create new credentials separately for my HTTP request node.
Mhm.
Okay. So if I'm gonna execute this now, it is gonna give me some output. And if you see over here, it's giving us all the information from our API. Now all we have to do is get this in our HTML. So because now we are getting some dynamic data, right? So whenever we make a call, this data is going to keep on changing. We want to add an expression, and we want to reference these values from the previous node. Now I did a bit of homework earlier, because creating the whole HTML page on the live stream, it definitely isn't a good idea. So that's why I kind of created this whole web page earlier. All I have to do is change the variables.
Smart.
All right, so I'm just trying to find out my variables over here. So I see that it says Docker pull. So I need to enter the Docker pulls over here. Now, because we are just getting the data from the previous node, I can select it from the current node option. So now we have the Docker pulls. Let's see. Over here, we need to do the votes. And let's get the fork as well. All right. And lastly, we need the GitHub stars. All right. So I'm going to execute the workflow from start, and let's see how it looks. Okay, not too pretty as I expected it to be. But hey, we got the dashboard working, right?
Yeah, yeah. And I guess like to be able to separate, because I think it's in some of these columns, especially where it goes to 5 figures, anything above 5 figures, like it gets a bit difficult to read without either a dot or a comma, depending on where you are.
Yeah.
So I guess like we could also use JavaScript, right, to be able to format that like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Gotcha.
We Uh, I we can do it right now, but I don't remember the exact JavaScript code snippet for that. So I'm just gonna skip it for now. Tane, do you remember the code that we want to use?
I do not. I remember that somebody in our team did that because they created a blog post on how to create, yeah, like a no-code dashboard with N8N.
Mm.
I don't remember it. No, let's skip it for now for sure.
Awesome.
Cool.
So I see a few questions from National Joke. Let's see. So this is basically gonna be a counter dashboard, not an actual metrics dashboard. Tana, do you want to answer this?
Sure. I think like if you want to get like more details into metrics, I think you mean probably like do you mean historical data and so on, growth and so on? So if that's what you mean, then I mean for sure using something like Retool or AppSmith might be a better idea because they handle all that kind of stuff, and also we'd have to also get the historical information. And it actually
Right.
ties in nicely with your next question as well. Like, why not take all the data that you got earlier, chuck it into a MySQL database, and connect something like Metabase to it? For sure, I think that's also a good idea because what happens with this counter dashboard, as you put it, is like we only get the latest data and we have no clue about historical data unless the API offers it, of course. So what we have been looking at doing is using some sort of time series data. But yeah, like Metabase could also do nicely here because the volume of the data is not really huge. So
Mm.
what you could do is, yeah, maybe have a workflow, feed this data every minute, every hour, as you please, and then you would be able to sort of um, feed this data into something like Retool or AppSmith, and that creates like a metrics dashboard with historical charts and so on as well.
Right. And one other way that I can think of it is maybe like over here in our set node, we are importing some CSS, right? We can also import. I haven't tried it yet, but maybe we can import a JavaScript library, a chart.js or something like that using CDN, and then maybe try to code that
You can,
because
because
yeah.
we actually, during one of our live streams, we created this Deutschschule for new learning new German words.
Mhm.
And what happened was we wanted to add Google Analytics to it. So we,
Okay.
yeah,
Uh-huh.
included the script. It works.
Awesome. So you can do that as well. So, but then again, it ties in that you get the data from a database because you would need the historical data to make the chart.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Then I see another thing from National Joke who says, "Yeah, got set up like that. Check everything into a MySQL database every minute." Yeah, that makes sense. And if your dashboard is public, would love to take a sneak peek, or if you can just offer a screenshot.
Yeah,
If you're in the Discord server, do share it in the show and tell. Would love to check it out and chat with you about how you're doing this.
definitely.
And Teflon Dude says, very cool, all in one solution. So for sure, I think dashboards, we could make them way more comprehensive as well. So we showed just like how to get data from GitHub, Product Hunt, and product hunt and Docker Hub,
The
basically. And you can pull in data from any REST APIs. You can create your own scraping solution with it and make that into a REST API as well. So there's a lot of possibilities with that. And yeah, you can also chug all this data into a database of sorts if you want access to historical data. You can also use a visualization tool, which are like way more suited for this kind of stuff. You can create an API within it and feed that into Retool or AppSmith. And I'm sure there must be other sorts of dashboards as well. So yeah. And I see comment from National Joker says, yeah, it's part of the workflow I shared in the Cutesies workflows. So if you don't know what Cutesies workflows is, so we have a thread going on in our discourse forum, so community.n8n.io, where somebody started this thread on, hey, show us what's the coolest workflows that you have built. And it has some really mind-blowing solutions. People have created some really cool stuff. So check it out. It's worth checking it out. Yeah, I
yeah.
was really inspired.
And I was so amazed by the number of nodes each workflow have. So like for me, the maximum number of nodes in a workflow I do is generally, I don't know, not more than 10. If it gets more than 10, I kind of try to divide my workflows and have smaller workflows then. But it was just so amazing to see those huge workflows out there.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I'm gonna drop a link to that post as well. So if you folks want to check it out, yeah, it's worth checking it out for sure. Cool. And one other thing, I guess, before we head out for the day is we are holding a community meetup tomorrow, and it's also going to be at the same time as the live stream, 5 p.m. Central European summertime, and we'd be holding it on Zoom, and we could drop in a link for registration as well. I am going to do that in just a sec. And yeah, like we are going to have some updates on our Series A by our founder and CEO. Then we are also going to have a session on product updates, what's coming in N8N. Ricardo is going to join us. He's going to share his story about how he joined the N8N community and became a part of the team, inspiring us all. And then we're going to have three really amazing lightning talks by Ben Ford, Brian Smith, and Miguel. So they're going to be showing what they have been doing with N8N and yeah, sharing us with us some wealth of knowledge because these folks are really active in the community, but also have been doing truly impressive stuff. So we make sure to join us. It's going to be a lot of fun. And at the end, we will also have a 30-minute office hours. So we'll be joined by a lot of our team members. So in case you have any questions about N8N, the company, the product, any workflows or anything, you can come in, ask your question, and we'll do our best to answer that.
Awesome.
Cool. Anything else, Harsha?
So I have a question for you.
Go ahead.
We kind of build a dashboard right now, right, which get us the metrics from GitHub, from Product Hunt, and all those things. But being new to developer relations, do this kind of metrics are really helpful? Like, what kind of metrics are helpful? That would be my question.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, like the discussion of metrics in DevRel has been going on for a while. I guess it really depends on a lot of things as the answer to most of the questions in DevRel. It depends on what's the size of the company, what's the size of the community, how young is the team, young as in like how many members are in the team, when was it started. Also really depends on what's the goals of the team because
Right.
if we look abstractly, like some DevRel teams are really working on education. Some of them are working on, community engagement, and others are focused a bit more on awareness and outreach. So it really depends on what high level goals your team is focusing on. And, we are focusing on a bit of everything. So we use orbit.love. If you don't know, it's CRM for getting community metrics. I also created an Orbit node a while back, so you can use it to get data from Orbit about community members, engagement channels. It also segments community members based on the activities they have, so we could see is like what things that we are like this live stream, we are doing webinars, community meetups, what things are most valuable to the community. So we take a look at a lot of different things. Orbit is definitely a good one. Take a look at that if you're in DevRel. So yeah, and we have a note for that. So that's quite perfect.
Awesome. All right. Yeah, that was the only question that I had.
Awesome. So yeah, thanks Harsha for showing this and like teaching me GraphQL and some HTML and CSS. This is really great. And thank you all for joining us. Like it was really great to answer all your questions, see like what things you've been working on. And yeah, if you have any other questions, feel free to join our Discord if you want to talk something about the live stream. But yeah, like feel free to join our community discourse as well. So a lot of Q&A happens there as well. So let us know if you have any other questions and see you next week. Have a nice one.
Have a nice one. Bye, everyone.